Hey everybody, List of Legends here, hope you're all having a good day, and if you couldn't tell by the title and thumbnail, we're going to be ranking every episode of Total Drama Island. Arguably the best season of the Total Drama franchise, personally mine is World Tour, but Island is still no joke, and it just completely stomps anything past World Tour. Which I don't think that is an outrageous statement, considering most of the fandom counts Revenge of the Island as the season where it kinda started to spiral down in quality. But besides that, a lot of people really wanted me to make this video ranking every episode of Total Drama Island, and I thought it would be fitting to do so, especially after my last video talking about every Total Drama character, which you should really go check that out by the way. I'll probably end up ranking all the other seasons at some point, then eventually build up to ranking every episode ever, depending on how much support these videos get of course. So let's just get started. But before that, be sure to click that like and subscribe button so I know you like my content. Without further interruptions, let's begin. So, not too long ago, I also made a video on the top 8 best Total Drama Island episodes, so I'm going to try to not make it seem like the last 8 are identical to that list. And as I said, Total Drama Island is one of the best seasons of the entire franchise, so it shouldn't come as a surprise on changing the list up a bit, because there really wasn't an episode I thought was outright terrible. They were all pretty dang good overall. So do keep that in mind if your favorite episode is lower on the list. So at my number 27 spot we have the Brunch of Disgustingness. Seeing the campers eat a variety of disgusting foods like worm spaghetti, soup with toenail hair clippings, or whatever it was. Kinda reminds me of that gross Krabby Patty from the episode Krusty Towers on SpongeBob, but that's not even the highlight of the episode. Seeing the contestants eat bowl balls followed by a puke montage, it was all just too over the top. Not a bad episode again, just an entire episode based on gross out humor was a bit too much for me. Number 26 is No Pain, No Game. I like how the episode shows off the various deadly challenges for each contestant, like Jeff sitting in a bucket of leeches, or Lindsay's marshmallow face waxing. But the thing I didn't like was Eva's return just to solely blame Bridget rather than her whole team. On top of that, they don't even have her really get her revenge, or unlock that potential she has that everybody wanted unleashed. Nope, she gets booted all in the same episode. On top of that, seeing Chris break his own rule about returning to the island after being voted off was utterly stupid. Like, this dude legit mentioned in every episode that once you're voted off, you can't ever come back. Ever. You could argue and say it's justified for Izzy to come back, since she technically wasn't voted off in Up the Creek, but Eva was voted off officially. So because of all that, I'm gonna have to place No Pain, No Game here. Number 25 is Haunt Capture, aka the episode where we see all the voted off contestants as they enjoy themselves at a resort. Well, everyone except Courtney. Seeing her beat up Harold after learning it was him who rigged the vote for her to be kicked off was really hilarious. The only thing that makes this episode so low on the list for me was Lashana's lame elimination. Chris counting the parents' vote at all, let alone twice, was really dumb, and overall it shouldn't happen at all. Number 24 is If You Can't Take the Heat, an episode where the contestants have to serve Chris a 3-course meal. So, is it me or did anyone else find that some of the food in this episode looked so good? Like, seriously dude. I'm not even kidding when I say this episode made me hungry beyond belief. But what kills this episode being a lot higher on the list was Best Unfair Elimination. All because she supposedly took a haunted statue from Boney Island. Like, sure dude, I get it. Plot convenience for Heather being in the game longer, but still, it just felt like a bit of a stretch, and that's not even counting Harold's bowling montage. Seriously, poor dude. Number 23 is the Sucky Outdoors, full of funny moments with Izzy dressing up like a bear, and Owen's story about his encounter with the bear before his time on the show. All the visuals surrounding it was super cool, although seeing a major focus on Katie and Sadie was a huge drag. Seeing them argue like little kids, it was just so stupid. On top of that, why not just eliminate both of them in some way? Because seeing Sadie continue on without Katie felt incredibly pointless, since she barely had any interactions or lines before she too was eliminated shortly after. Number 22 is Trial by Tri-Arm Triathlon. Great episode full of memorable moments, specifically of Gwen and Jeff bonding. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is an Easter egg of Camp TV, where originally Gwen and Jeff were supposed to be a couple this season, which is kinda cool. But the thing that really sucks is they never show this former friendship again in the series, which was a bit of a letdown, and it felt like this episode was non-canon in that aspect. Number 21 is Up the Creek, a challenge that involves the contestants going to Boney Island for the first time. The episode mainly focused on strengthening relationships in a sense, like Jeff trying to get with Bridget, and of course Cody putting his own love aside for Gwen and actually trying to hook her up with Trent, all of which, massive respect, dude. Number 20 is Paintball Deer Hunter. Some great moments like Beth realizing Heather is only in the game for herself and stands up to her, but also some really bad moments like Cody getting mauled by a bear and later voted off, all of which was pretty extreme to see go down. Now I know I said I don't like Beth as a character, but I will admit her elimination shortly after this was really lame. Both hers and Cody's elimination felt a bit forced, but they obviously needed a way to keep Heather in the game, so that's that. Number 19 is The Big Sleep. Such a simple challenge, but the writers managed to take this to a whole other level. Even though it's the campers staying in only one spot the entire time, the creative ways the contestants try to stay awake was really interesting. Courtney constantly running in place, Justin painting over his eyes to make it look like he was still awake, but yet still is a statue. That was really hilarious. Then you have Owen sleepwalking over a cliff, then swimming with the dolphins. Such an iconic scene. Number 18 is the Not So Happy Campers Part 1. Solid introduction to the contestants, and seeing how they interact with one another was really interesting to watch. Even though it was all focused purely on introduction, no challenge, they still do a solid job at what's to come later down the road. Nothing else to say, solid episode nonetheless. Number 17 is the Not So Happy Campers Part 2. This episode is a bit better since obviously it has the first challenge, which of course was the infamous 100-foot cliff dive. Great challenge for the start of the season. Can't forget Owen came in clutch for the Gophers, and Zeke sealing his fate as the first boot. Could you imagine if it was actually Courtney who got the first boot instead? Yeah, me neither. Number 16 is Are We There Yeti, another Survivor challenge in the woods, except with just Heather, Gwen, Duncan, and Owen. The highlight of this episode definitely has to be Chef taking charge. You know, when he takes over the show, you're in for a good time. As much as I like seeing Gwen and Heather work out their differences, and work together for a little bit, it doesn't compare to the amount of sadness and despair I felt for Duncan. Dude lost because of a few sticky buns. Poor guy. Number 15 is Camp Castaways. Once again, another survival challenge, but what makes this episode top all that came before it was the fabulous introduction of Mr. Coconut. Such a great character, he was the star of this episode, nothing else to say. Number 14 is Who Can You Trust? Great character build up for Duncan and Courtney. This episode really makes you miss how these two used to be. After DJ's bunny gets eaten by a snake, then taken by an eagle, ultimately to be eaten by a shark, Duncan goes out of his way to make sure DJ doesn't feel depressed by finding him a new bunny. It really showed he wasn't 100% a true villain. Overall, solid character development. I also love this episode for finally giving Sadie the boot. As I said, after Katie's elimination, her continuing on the show just felt so pointless, since she had barely any lines or interactions. So glad they've never brought these two to compete in another season since then. Number 13 is Not Quite So Famous, the talent show where it seems Harold was the only one with true talent by beatboxing and clutching the dub for the killer bass. Unless you want to count Heather reading Gwen's diary to the whole world, really messed up, and this was the episode where she really started a gun for Gwen and tried to make her time on the show as miserable as possible. Number 12 is Search and Do Not Destroy. Boy oh boy, this episode was really hard to watch. Seeing Trent and Gwen's relationship peak, only to be ruined by Heather, was off the charts insane to me. This is when I feel Heather was at her absolute worst to Gwen. Other than that, I loved the pirate themed challenge, and Lashana going all around the island to stand up for Gwen, based off the information she knew at the time, was really sweet. Don't worry guys, Heather will be getting her comeuppance soon enough. Number 11 goes to Wawanakwa Gone Wild. The challenge involved the contestants being randomly selected an animal they have to capture and bring back to the giant cage. Overall, this episode focused on comedy to me, with Gwen having to hunt down a duck that runs faster than any duck I've seen in my whole life, and of course Duncan having to fend off what looks to be a raccoon transformer. Probably the funniest moment has to be Izzy accidentally shooting Heather with a tranquilizer, causing her to be paralyzed briefly. Too bad for Duncan, he gets caught into cleaning the restroom in Heather's place. Man, couldn't imagine what that guy had to clean up.
disgusting.
We are now at the final 10 of our ranking, which goes to Phobia Factor. Seeing all the contestants confess their fears to each other to ultimately be caused to face them as part of their challenge was really interesting and funny at the same time. Tyler being afraid of chickens, or Duncan's fear of Celine Dion music store standees. How about Courtney's fear of green jelly? Really funny stuff, guys. Number 9 is extreme torture, and no, this episode is not so high because of a certain scene involving Heather showing something to Harold because of a good old tree branch. But the amount of hatred brewing between Bridget and Gwen over who the love letter was for, ultimately end up being written by Harold for Lashana. Probably the biggest love twist out of this entire franchise by far, especially after hearing Harold called her big and loud at the beginning of the season. This episode was full of surprises to say the least. Now we are at the final grade 8 spots, which goes to Hide and Be Sneaky. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a good time with a good old fashioned game of hide and seek where Chef tries to hunt down all the campers. Challenges like this really makes you appreciate Total Drama Island a whole lot more. They take a yet simple plot and still make it really entertaining. Duncan forcing the other guys to form their guys alliance to get the edge on the girls, only for Owen to spill the beans on everything to Gwen was really funny. It's also another episode where Heather some way, somehow gets invincibility. Can't also forget the epic showdown between Chef and Izzy, one of the best rivalries of the series for sure. Number 7 is That's Off the Chain. I'll say it again, Lindsay telling Heather off was the highlight of the episode, and is easily one of the most iconic moments of the entire show. Even though Lindsay does get eliminated here, it's still great development for her character going forward. I also thought it was really funny how Izzy and Lashana skipped the challenge altogether with no penalty whatsoever. Seeing the other campers build their own wheels from scratch was also really cool to see what they could come up with, especially Jeff's homage to Bridget and Duncan's death machine. Number 6, we have Hook, Line, and Screamer. The challenge was to have the campers watch a horror movie and live through it, but the biggest twist was that there actually was a killer with a chainsaw and a hook on the island. So probably Chris's best caring moment of the show, he runs down to the chow hall to warn Gwen. Yeah, All Stars or Pocketail Chris 100% wouldn't have done that. The only small complaint I could say about this episode would be DJ's overdramatic screaming, but the fact that it was all because of Heather's green face mask, I'll give it a pass. That was really funny to watch. Number 5 is Basic Straining. After rewatching this episode, it's really nice to see Courtney finally take a page off of Duncan's book and break Chef's rules. That was really hilarious. Seeing the two finally get together, it had solid build up, no question, but the biggest twist has to be Harold getting his revenge for all the bullying Duncan has done, by rigging the votes and having Courtney get the boot. As much as I want Courtney to win a season, I don't blame Harold one bit for what he did. The dude clutched a couple challenges for his team, like the talent show and dodgeball tournament, and it's like they suddenly forgot about that, so props to Harold for getting his revenge. Number 4 is I Triple Dog Dare You, the absolute karma-filled episode for Heather, and it's so well deserved. After all the damage she caused, it's so rewarding to see Owen and Gwen team up and whoop Heather with a whole bunch of deadly dares, ranging from eating cockroaches, kissing Chef's dirty sock, slapping herself repeatedly, being shot by a can into, I hope that's mud, or the dare that led to her downfall, Lindsay's dare to have her head shaved by Chef, which of course she denies and is eliminated from the competition, but not before the razor accidentally falls on her head, shaving most of it off. It's also really funny how she ends up going bald in Total Drama action as well. Number 3 is the very last episode really. Seeing Gwen and Owen race it out for the 100 G's was just as good as watching all the other contestants come back and help whatever contestant they wanted to win, with most wanting to choose Owen due to his claim to throw the biggest, hugest, sickest party ever on a yacht. Heather also tried to of course make it difficult for Gwen by greasing her flagpole and trying to give her a cupcake full of laxatives, ultimately for Owen to end up eating it instead. Owen won in my country, but I didn't mind seeing Gwen win either. Both 100% deserve the win. Number 2, we have Total Drama Island. Still can't get over all those dramas. This episode was full of so many great moments. Perfect way to end the season off, with Chris offering $1 million to anyone who can bring the suitcase full of money back to the dock before sundown. So many great and interesting team ups too, with Noah, Izzy, Eva, or even Heather and Harold. Probably the most interesting team up was Beth, Lindsay, and Zeke. The episode was basically a long roller coaster ride, with the million going from team to team. I absolutely loved how Justin was able to take the money away from Izzy and Eva just by his looks alone. Then you have Courtney stealing a hot air balloon, as well as Lashana taking a four-wheeler. Overall, it was a really great episode, and it was really nice to see everyone get a chance to win the million as well. By far, the best episode of Total Drama to me has got to be Dodge Brawl. Not once did I bat an eye during this episode. It was pure perfection, 5 stars, and whatever else to emphasize just how good this episode was. You have Tyler's funny moments with throwing the ball at literally everything but his opponents, except the one he never wanted to take out. Poor Lindsay. Cody turning the ball into an electric missile, Owen turning into a pure powerhouse and knocking out anything in his path, all for Duncan to wake up from his nap and turn the tide. Then seal it off with Harold showing off his figure skating skills, dodging everything and anything Owen has to throw at him, ultimately scoring a dub for the Killer Bass. I could literally go on and on about how much I love this episode, it was just that good. Alrighty viewers, that crosses off ranking every episode of Total Drama Island on our list. Like I said, if these videos continue to get more support, I'll end up ranking every episode of Total Drama ever. And with all that said, I look forward to seeing you with our next list.